question before I let you go. I just want to ask a question to Dr. Bhanumurthy first. You know, Abhijit Sen, because here, of course, the National Food Security Act was also mentioned. Abhijit Sen, in one of the articles or interviews rather, he said, and the former, in fact, member of the Planning Commission, heavily subsidized cereals would definitely lead to a decline in food expenditure in rural areas to a certain extent. At this moment, I will not be able to gauge the specific impact of NFSA on reduced food expenditure. Irrespective of that, there is a real problem of falling incomes, declining output, and farm distress in rural India, which would have a greater impact on reduced food expenditure. Today, when we talk about these issues and welfare economics, there seems to be these polarizing thoughts. Somewhere a denial that there is no rural distress, or maybe the middle path that there is no rural distress, but there is an agrarian distress. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the whole issue started with 2017-18.
Could you have the mic a little closer to yourself?
Yeah. So my view is that if you look at that 2017-18, to some extent, government is right to say that that's not a normal year. In fact, I keep saying that it will be surprised to see anybody surprised by the decline in the incomes as well as consumption in 17-18, because we have seen 2 consecutive shocks to the overall income generating mechanism. But to say that there is a rural distress, I think that's injustice to the Ministry of Rural Development, the kind of work they have been doing at the rural areas. In fact, anybody can see that what is happening in the rural area. There are a lot of numbers, and in fact, if you visit to any of the rural areas in any part of the country, you will see some kind of a transformation. You know, that it's true that there are a lot of things are happening, as Mr. Sinha already pointed out. The aspirations are also increasing in a tremendous way, in a big way. So overall, I would say that I would not like to accept that there is a rural distress. In fact, if you look at add to whatever the central government is spending, they look at what are the state governments are spending, I think substantial amount of budgets are actually going to the rural areas. No, there is a huge transformation.
Are they going, or are they simply on paper? Because there's always that trickle-down factor that one talks about in India.
I'll come back to this. In fact, in the previous round, we asked about the statistical system. The fact that 10 years ago, we were talking only about the outlays. Now we are talking about the outcomes. That itself shows that there's a huge transformation in the way the statistical system has actually grown over a period of time. The numbers that Mr. Sinha pointed out, in fact, I'm sure it is the number that he has seen in the morning, today morning, in the Samvad app, Gram Samvad app. Anybody can look at from your Gram Samvad app from your mobile. There is a huge data coming up. You know, to say that these are all not being generated from the rural areas, I think we are really missing out in a big way what is happening in the rural segment.
Okay.
So with PMGSY, for that matter, you go to any rural areas, PMGSY actually transformed the whole villages.
Okay.
So, I mean, there are issues. There are many issues in terms of implementation. In fact, I think Rural Development Ministry was lucky enough that this is the stage where you have huge technology, huge banking penetration, which has actually helped implement those programs very, very successfully.
You are